Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. If you like action figures or toys or any kind of homemade craft, then you came to the right place. This is SkyTrain, my art channel. This is where I like to make articulated toys thanks to an assortment of 3D printing and 3D modeling and molding and casting, but I'll get to that later. I like to make toys and little knickknacks, anything I really feel like making. So if this is your first video, I've been making a series of Labyrinth action figures from the 1986 fantasy film Labyrinth, directed by Jim Henson. So far I've made a big beast, Ludo, and I've made a goblin, all from Ludo's opening scene. And then the third character for that opening scene, which is what I want to display, is this character right here. So this will be the last Labyrinth video on this channel for just a second. I'm going to make more Labyrinth figures in the future. I don't only do Labyrinth toys, so I'll be also showcasing some other things for a second. But the final Labyrinth figure to add to my display is Sarah. Sarah is the protagonist of the film Labyrinth, played by the wonderful Jennifer Connelly. At the time, I think she was probably like 14 years old or something crazy, but she did a wonderful job. Now, I've already revealed these figures on my other social media platforms, but I've really wanted to, before I showcase any further figures, I wanted to properly release these three figures in their own individual videos that demonstrate how they were made and the thought behind them and all that. So in the film, Sarah's kind of in her own imagination a lot of the time. She's kind of in her own world. So one night when she has to babysit her baby brother, who's really getting on her nerves, she, in a fit of frustration, calls out for the Goblin King to take him away and take away her problems. And then, of course, the funny twist is that the Goblin King actually does come and he wisps the baby away, and then she has to go through the labyrinth, through a series of obstacles, finding companions and facing crazy characters to get her baby brother back. It's a childhood favorite of mine. When the film first came out, it didn't do very well, which is so unfortunate, and it really hurt Jim Henson that the reception wasn't that good, but it's since then become a cult classic, and I'm definitely in there. This film has meant so much to me growing up. My brothers and I loved watching it growing up, but they never had good toys. They never really came out with great merch. It's only recently that they came out with Jareth action figures, so I decided a few years ago, well, several years ago, because it's been a process, I'm just going to make my own. I'll figure out how to 3D model, 3D print, and all the rest in order to make my own toys, because I want this stuff, and I know plenty of other people out there would love to have other Labyrinth figures on display. So, I'll get to this bit later, her card. So she is about 6 inches tall. She comes with a tiled base. She's fully articulated, cast in two different types of resin, 45D, which is a softer resin, and 305, smooth cast 305, which is tougher, which I use for the joints and for the face. She comes with a lipstick, her tile, which she draws an arrow on with her lipstick in the film, and Baby Toby, which I'll get back to Baby Toby in a second, but this little bastard was really hard to make, unusually hard to make, just for an accessory. I didn't have to give her the baby, but I figured it was just the best accessory for Sarah. So, this figure, like Ludo and like the Goblin, has been a process of about 5 or 6 years as I learned how to make this stuff, as I learned the gear, the modeling software, the whole process, the different types of resins, different types of molding supplies. She's progressed as well, so she's gone through several phases. Stand, Sarah. There's really not much painting required for the Sarah figure, except for the golden designs in her vest and her face, and just a little bit in her hair. Really, her, shoes are dyed brown. The resin for her legs are dyed blue, although getting the right shade of blue has been a bit difficult. And her body is dyed white. And you have to dye it because even though the resin might cure to either a translucent or a white, that white can yellow in time. As you can see here, another problem I dealt with was the articulation works a lot more easily if you split the leg down the front, because it can attach to the joint a lot more easily. But I hated seeing the seams down the legs, so I ended up switching the articulation to make the seams line up with the line on her jeans on the side. So if you display her in the front, you can't even see the different pieces of the leg like you can in this figure, which I just think looks a lot worse. Her legs, this figure's legs fell off because the articulation was cured kind of weak in her hip joint, and it broke off. So this was my very first Sarah completed figure. At the time, I was very proud of her. I was so happy to finally see a completed figure. You know, in hindsight, obviously, she's got a lot of problems, but you need to be proud of the stages of your progress, you know? Like, don't go mocking a 7-year-old's drawing because it's crap. It's progress. So this figure turned out good for what I needed it to. First of all, its legs were cast in black, or not cast in black. It wasn't cast in with any dye whatsoever, so it's translucent. So I had to paint the blue on, and it's very muddy and ugly looking. But also, I made the upper legs just one whole piece. I took away 2 points of articulation. I guess I was just trying to make it as simple and easy for myself as possible, but of course me thinking, I can make it better, I can make it do more, made me want to pursue that instead, and then that took a whole lot more time. As you can see, the first figure only would bend about 90 degrees, whereas the eventual articulation had a double jointed knee, so it could bend a lot more and swivel right above the thigh. Same with her upper body. I spray painted it white because it's just a white shirt with a white vest. I didn't dye it at the time, and I didn't have a double jointed elbow either, so her arm also only bends about 90 degrees, whereas the final product bends a lot more. Sorry. But also her face. This was the original model I did for her face, but that ended up upgrading as well. So it's a little bit puffy. It's not terrible, but you know, it's very flat, very simple. I loved it at the time, but looking, comparing it now, it's like, oh, jeez. But that's just how art in progress goes. The figure after that had that second figure syndrome where I just forget how to paint. So I call this the Michael Jackson Sarah because she's ghostly pale. So her dark features really stand out. I don't know why I did that. At the time, her head and her hair were cast in the same piece rather than it being cast separately and then attached together, so that I could cast them in different dyes rather than having, cast it in black and then paint the skin on top of it, which gets muddy and thick like it did here, or cast it in the skin color and then paint the black over it. That was just like kind of a waste of time, really. So I ended up just separating the two pieces. So that, yeah, her makeup's kind of garish. It's really bright and out there. I didn't dye the shirt well enough, so it's also yellowed a little bit. And then she also has the split down the middle for her leg articulation, which I didn't like. So all around, pretty much a failed attempt. But that ended up leading the way to the final Sarah. So yeah, so that's, several years of progress and errors and, just attempts to make things a bit better. She's fully articulated. That's why I provided stands, because they can stand up on their own, but you know, so often figures can just be knocked down. So like, she can be, you know, she can stand on her own, but all you have to do is knock, you know, on the wall or something, or you never know. Your cat jumps on the display case or something and knocks everything down. So a base just helps keep them up. Like the Nipper though, her base is going to upgrade to a better modeled base. This is just a temporary one. Before we get to the little bastard, let's talk about the other things I made for her. I made, in addition to the figure, I made a keychain and a keychain and a magnet for her, because I like fridge magnets. So I'm slowly building up my collection for my collection of all the Labyrinth figures as magnets. And also keychains, because why not? It's cool. The keychain has "You have no power over me" engraved in the back of it, which is one of her most famous quotes in the film. Okay, let's talk about Toby. Toby gave me just as much trouble as he did for Sarah in the film. So behold the line of bobbies. This is how Toby originated. One solid piece of hard resin. I was like, okay, I'll just paint it all on. But painting it took too long, because the main issue with Toby, making him difficult, was his little cute red striped pajamas. It's those damn stripes that caused all the issues. So to take you through the process of the little demon baby from hell, I thought, okay, just painting everything on takes too long. I was like, okay, well, I'll at least dye it into the skin color, so I don't have to paint the face and hands, but I still have to paint layer after layer of white, because you have to do several layers in order for the dye not to show through. I was like, okay, well, that's still taking too long. So that's when I decided, okay, I'll separate the head and the hands from the body so I could dye them separately, just like I did for her face and the keychains. And that helped a lot, which was really weird modeling. Modeling and dealing with like baby body parts. Like I had the little head on a chimney, like a scepter of a baby head scepter. It was really weird, and little baby hands. It was weird having little baby parts everywhere. You deal with lots of casts, so I just have like a handful of baby parts that I'm working with. It's kind of it's still fun though. So I dyed the head. It's just unattached. The headless baby. So I dyed the head and the hands and the skin color, and I dyed the pajamas white. So I figured, okay, all I'll have to do then is paint on the red stripes. So now I started with a red paintbrush, but that got really messy, and you would have to keep, because you'd have to use such a small brush, you had to keep going over and over, keep re-dipping. That took a long time. So then I got an acrylic paint pen with a very fine tip, and so I did that, and it worked pretty well. The lines are kind of rough, but it mostly just took too long. I wanted to be able to make these kind of relatively fast and efficiently. So I was like, okay, I need to figure something else out. And that's when I figured I'll just remodel him, but I'll sink the stripes in so that I can dye him in white and then just do a red wash. Even if it takes 2 or 3 washes, the red will sink into the stripes and settle there, and then I could brush away the rest, revealing the white. The problem is the red stripes weren't deep enough, and the red wash would dry too quickly on the white, so it just ended up being a whole messy red disaster. So then I thought, okay, well, in that case, I'll also make the figure a little bit more clean by separating his body into 2 pieces. So now instead of 1 whole piece just for an accessory baby, he is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate pieces just for this one stupid baby. And he still dyed in white, so I tried the red wash again, and that didn't work because it just not working. So that's when I decided to flip the idea around. I'll dye him in red instead, and then just at the right angle, just dry brush white over him, trying not to get the bristles inside the stripes, and just paint the white on. And that worked for the most part, except again, the red stripes weren't deep enough. I would end up painting, white would end up getting into the stripes way too often. So I did that, and then I reprinted him with deeper stripes. Those weren't deep enough, and then I reprinted him again with deeper stripes and thicker stripes, and then that finally worked. So the third version of this idea, where dyeing him in red and dry brushing the white, worked out the best. So then that's how that's what dropping babies. That's how I resulted in this, which is pretty clean. I like him. I'll still probably reprint him again and deepen it just a little bit, just out of perfection, but like it's fine. Like, I think it looks good. And I'd also, for his collar and his cuffs, I would just go over it with a little bit of red paint anyway. So this guy took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is probably the ninth version. There's probably versions I've forgotten about because it's been so long. I've been dealing with him as long as I've been dealing with any of these other characters, for 5 or 6 years as I've taught myself this stuff. So it's been a hell of a process for just a bunch of babies. But at the end of the day, I'm glad I did it, because I do think that her figure should come with her baby brother, Toby. Toby should get a little action figure of his own, even if it's not articulated. And I did. So I could finally have her completed on my display case. So like Ludo and like the Nipper Goblin, I made her a card and a card stand. Her card stand displaying the fairies that she comes across that ends up biting her hands when she reaches the gate of the labyrinth and meets her first companion, Hoggle. The base is cast in black resin, and the fairies are just 3D printed in white resin with glittery wings. And I made a card for her as well, a Skytrain card called the Searching Sister, that you can have on display with everything else. Because I love cards and I love toys, and I figured I'd put them together and have a magical display. So in order to make a figure, I've run through this already in the last 2 videos, so I'm only going to do it really quickly. In order to make the figure, I simply model it in ZBrush, a modeling software. That's where I design it, and I articulate it, I slice it up, I articulate it, and then I put it into slicing software, and I 3D print it on my resin printer. And then from those, after you clean that up, all the crap up, you clean off the supports, and you wash it up, mold the pieces, and then you cast them. You want to add chimneys so that the air has some place to escape, so you don't end up with bubbles. And then speaking of bubbles, you put the molds when you're molding them and the casts when you're casting them into the pressure pot. And what the pressure pot does is it doesn't get rid of the bubbles, but it shrinks the bubbles to a size that you can't see them. You don't want bubbles because your piece can either end up with craters or like warts. So now I dye the resin to save me a whole lot of painting, because painting can be time consuming and muddy. It could be messy. It cannot look particularly nice. It's more efficient to dye as much as you can without needing to paint it. Yeah, and then you cast it and then you paint what needs to be painted. All of this has taken me years to do, because I started off because I didn't know I needed a pressure pot and an air compressor to begin with. I didn't know I needed a resin printer. I thought I needed an FDM printer to do all this. And then I just slowly would learn more and more. Like, my slicing software had to change. And then as I made these figures, I'd have to change something or want to change something. So it's been a hell of a journey, but I'm so pleased with the way they turned out. So yeah, so I made her this size, so that she would be able to fit the size of the Jareth figure one of the many Jareth figures that they came out with her. That way, when I make her Ballroom Sarah variant, because I'm already in the process of making the Ballroom Sarah, I want that Sarah to be the same size as her, and I want her to be on display with particularly Ballroom Jareth. If I haven't proven that I'm a fan yet, then just saying all that shows that I'm a real fan. Dork! What a good little nerd. And Jareth with his goblin and Ludo. There you go. So the first, yeah. Fuck yeah. So the first series, obviously I didn't make the Jareth figure, I just wanted to line him up because it's cool. So the first line of Labyrinth fully articulated action figures is complete. Again, I've released these figures on my other social media platforms already, but I wanted to give a better insight on the figures before I start releasing more Labyrinth figures and more other figures from other franchises that I really like, or other original figures as well. So it'll be probably a few videos before I start showcasing some more Labyrinth figures. I'm currently in the process of making a few. But till then, I hope you liked the Ludo and the Nipper Goblin and the Sarah with her obnoxious Toby brother videos. I'd love to hear what you think about Sarah, about all of them. What do you think? Like, do you think they look good on display with each other? Like, I don't know. I've wanted these for so long, and it's been such a process to make them. But to finally have finished them. Like, they're all done now. They're complete. They work. Everything I try to do is successful. Like, everything I try to do has actually resulted in something that I'm happy with and that I want to display. Is so fulfilling, and that's like it took a few years to get there, but it was all worth it because that feeling is so good, and it just makes me want to keep making more. I just want to keep making more cool stuff, and I hope you guys find this interesting enough to tag along with me on my journey, because I'll be continuing to showcase the process and revealing them and stuff, and I do have a shop, so here they are. Series 1 of more series to come. I can't wait to show you the next figure, and I already gave you a sneak peek of what one of the figures in the future. I don't know what series it's going to be, but Ballroom Sarah is coming, along with several others. But until then, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I had a blast making these. Go with your goblin. I had a blast making these, and I hope you like them. So thank you again for watching. Stay safe, and you have no power over me. Remember, you have no power over me. All right, thanks.